A few weeks ago, misinformation about the death of Vladimir Putin was thrown into the information field. It was clearly provocative in nature with elements of political grotesquerie, if not outright mockery of the audience who believed it. The mouthpiece through which this provocative salvo was fired was former MGIMO Professor Valery Solovey, who for several years had been testing the audience with false statements about Putin's supposedly poor health. To be more convincing, the General SVR channel was created and promoted to help Solovey, and later FSB agent Sergei Zhirnov, living in France, was involved in the operation. Contacts were also involved with the editors of European yellow publications, which regularly carried out media coverage of this topic in the West. Unfortunately, there were many people who, due to fatigue from the war and the desire to end it as quickly as possible, without doing anything, believed the Solovey. Moreover, among those who believed, there were many Ukrainians who forgot that Solovey is a product of the KGB system, and it is impossible to be a professor at MGIMO without collaborating with the special services. Those who believed the provocateur also forgot that back in 2012, this fighter against Putin, on instructions from the FSB, was leading a nationalist direction in Russia.
The picket of nationalists at net sales in Moscow ended with the 6th radical youth attacking passers-by of non-Slavic appearance. The action of the Griboyedov monument began at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. About 300 people gathered for the rally. Most are young people 16 to 18 years old with football club scarves. Nationalist leaders Georgy Belovikov, Alexander Belov, and Valery Solovey came.
Москва без чурок! Москва без чурок! Москва без чурок! Русский порядок на русской земле! Русский порядок на русской земле! Еще один лозунг новый!
He was even presented in the pseudo-democratic media as one of the leaders of the nationalists. For greater recognition, Professor Solovey was invited to popular propaganda talk shows, in which he was presented as a fiery fighter against migrants, as the most important evil that has covered Russia.
Russia is the world's main consumer of Afghan heroin. 90% of heroin is brought here by migrants. They bring infectious diseases here, an epidemic of typhoid fever that begins in St. Petersburg. They bring crime. They threaten our health, our well-being. This shaft must be stopped. It's very easy to do. Immediately introduce a visa regime in Central Asia. Those who are here illegally must return to their homeland after clearing their passage. That is why our new Force Party has launched a campaign for the immediate introduction of a visa regime in Central Asia. You can subscribe on the website. But at the same time, your party, judging by your speech, speaks of people as second-class creatures. Your party is neo-Nazi. It is you who hate Russians and Russian citizens, but we respect them.
After the nationalist movements in Russia were defeated, Solovey was transferred to the information front with the liberals. And the indomitable speaker has already appeared in the role of defender of the bright image of Comrade Stalin.
In the camp of the Mr. Guzman, it is customary to spit on mass graves, because it is impossible to separate the old man from victory. Nowhere in any country is the Supreme Commander-in-Chief separated from victory from defeat either. Why is the conversation about Stalin now? Not here at all in Russia, but for a very simple reason. Because the consequences of liberal reforms in Russia are commensurate with the losses that happened in the 30s and everything that is attributed to Stalin. They are not a little less, but they had a little bit more in their assets, something you don't have and never will have. This is the first speech. Second, what gives you the fear of power and hatred, and the fact that Stalin has now become the most popular figure in mass consciousness?
Now let's move on to the facts. Solovey Valery Dmitrievich, born on August 19, 1960 in the city of Shastya, Lugansk region of the Ukrainian SSR, graduated from the History Department of Lomonosov Moscow State University in 1983, then became a graduate student, and later an employee of the Institute of History of the USSR. And it was during this period that an event occurred that determined all of his future activities. Valery Solovey was recruited in January 1987 as an employee of the 5th Main Directorate of the KGB of the USSR. Solovey motive: ideological and patriotic basis. When signing the cooperation agreement, he chose the operational pseudonym Nikolai Korshunov. Currently, it is led by employees of the Service for the Protection of the Constitutional System and the Fight Against Terrorism of the central apparatus of the FSB. Over the course of a number of years, Solovey, on the instructions of the curators, introduced current propaganda narratives into the consciousness of citizens, the need to participate in a popular vote, a plebiscite. He said, "My family and I will go vote closer to the closing of the polling stations." During the pandemic, he urged citizens to get vaccinated with Sputnik V. In 2021, he spoke about mandatory participation in the elections of State Duma deputies. By the way, Solovey himself was going to take part in these elections as a candidate from the Kostroma region, but his negligence crossed out these plans in the spring of 2021, after the end of the broadcast on Echo Moskvy. Solovey, not paying attention to the fact that the recording had not yet been stopped, informed Venediktov that his candidacy was supported by Kiriyenko himself. In February 2022, the special services conducted a staged search of Solovey, after which Solovey stated that his foreign passport had been confiscated and now he would not be able to travel outside the Russian Federation. But this is a lie. According to the FSB border service at Viennakovo Airport, Solovey freely crossed the border of the Russian Federation 8 times on the Moscow-Istanbul route in 2023 alone, having in his hands a foreign passport with a current Schengen visa. Since the end of the summer of 2023, Solovey, in order to demoralize both the Ukrainian and Russian audiences, has been dispersing the propaganda theses of the Putin administration. Crimea is Russia. At peace negotiations with Kiev, the Crimean Peninsula will be bracketed, as well as the occupied territories, along with the topic of reparations. And now about how the system pays its agent Valery Solovey. While in Russia, Nightingale enjoys all the benefits that are not available to ordinary, foreign agents, among whom he was included in the name of legend. The prohibited foreign agent is allowed to conduct closed paid lectures and accept charitable donations from naive citizens on ESPA card. Later, the profit received is invested in the purchase of Moscow real estate in new buildings of the PIK group of companies. Another source of income is a cryptocurrency wallet, on which the oil company Rosneft, on the orders of Sechin himself, sends sponsorship on a monthly basis. Let us note that in Sechin, for several years, Solovey has had a reliable and loyal friend, who not only provides him with the necessary information, but also further enhances his personal security. The cryptocurrency received from Rosneft is transferred to a broker's account in Dubai, after which it is invested in real estate in the United Arab Emirates. So stories about Putin's fatal illnesses are a very profitable business. Thus, the information special operation, Putin's death, has the goal of confusing and relaxing the enemy, making him believe that a little more and the problem will resolve itself. It won't resolve. End of message.